used to work with a guy named Andrew who cared about his job more than anyone I've ever worked with. He rode 2 buses just to get to work every day. And once he was there, he had to overcome tremendous challenges to get the job done. He would constantly interrupt people, oftentimes loudly. He had a hard time touching things, especially soil. And he would walk away from conversations or hang up on phone calls when he thought they were over. I was his boss at a farm that employs people with disabilities. I think many of you probably know the place. So Andrew's favorite job at the farm was cashiering. And he was really good at cashiering. He could do everything that was asked. But his interactions with customers left a little to be desired. I witnessed this one time when this really nice woman came in to the farm stand. It was a small farm stand, so like everything was in close proximity, the register, all the other products. And one thing you need to know about Andrew is when he was cashiering, if you put something on his counter, that meant in his book that you were done shopping, no matter what. So this nice woman comes in, she gets a bunch of tomatoes, puts it in the bag, puts it on the counter, and then she turns to shop the soap display behind her. I don't think she got one whiff into the lavender soap before Andrew burst out and said, "Ma'am, are you gonna finish? Are we gonna be here all night?" I said, "Andrew, take a break." It wasn't always like that. Customers loved Andrew, and actually many of them asked for him by name when he wasn't there. And for a guy with Asperger's and who didn't like to make eye contact or have much use for opposing points of view, he was quite a conversationalist. We talked a lot about what his perfect job would be, which was quality control at Ben & Jerry's. And he liked to rant about, to me especially, about cherry tomatoes and how we should never grow them again. Because, as he put it, it was a total disaster the last time. I'm not really sure what happened with the cherry tomatoes before I got there. Pretty sure it was bad. Fast forward a few months, and I'm in the farm stand with Andrew again, and the same exact situation presented itself. Nice person comes in, she puts her stuff on a bunch of different things, puts it on the counter, and this is closer to the holidays, so there's all kinds of shiny things to look at in the farm stand. And she turns away, and I just see this happening, and I look at Andrew, and he's leaning over, and he's got his hands on the counter, and his face are on his hands, and the customer can't see because he's behind the register. And I look over at him, and I'm just like, "Andrew, do you need a break, man? Are you all right?" And he puts his hand up to me, and he kind of yells out, "I can do it. I can do it." And he did. After 6 years at the farm, Andrew got his big shot to go work in the community at an internet pet supply, horse feed place. He was doing packing and shipping, and everyone at the farm was so proud and excited for Andrew because this is the way it's supposed to work. You know, you come to the farm, it doesn't matter if it takes 6 years. Get down to your fighting weight and get out in the community and go find your job, your meaningful job. About 3 or 4 weeks into that job, I get a phone call. It's his case manager. And she's distraught. "They fired him," she said. "I don't know why he was doing the work. I just feel so awful for him. I don't know why this is happening. I'm pretty sure I know why it happened. He probably interrupted the wrong person one too many times, or walked away from a conversation before it was over, and he like, I know that Andrew understands what you tell him. He's actually very smart, and once you give him instructions for a job, he leaves to go do that job. He's not gonna let you know he knows. That's how he operates. I was just so angry, because I knew Andrew and most of the people that work where I work, they're gonna need a boss that gives a shit about employing people with disabilities. The next week, Andrew got on the first bus and then the second bus and came back to the farm. He walks through the front door and announces to everybody, "I'm back." It was less than a year later, Andrew got another shot in the community at a restaurant near his home, so he didn't have to ride the bus. And a couple days before he was supposed to start, I got a call from his boss, his new boss, and he said to me, like, he wanted to know more about the farm, and he wanted me to know that he was really looking forward to working with Andrew. And like, I knew right away, this guy cared. This was important to him. And then he asked me, if I thought Andrew could run a salad bar and restock it. And I said, yeah, he can do it. He can definitely do it. Thank you.
Fibonacci. I'm intrigued about Fibonacci. Fibonacci? Yeah. Anybody here of a Fibonacci age? Anybody 13 maybe? 21? 34? 55? 89? The Fibonacci numbers just, in nature, I love them. You take a 1 and a 2, and you make a 3. And a 2 and a 3 make a 5. And a 3 and a 5, an 8. And a 5 and an 8, 13. 21, 34, 55, 89, 144. A dozen. What's not to like? Fibonacci numbers occur in nature, and I'm so interested in the patterns of sunflowers. Been looking at them for the longest time. And they're right in the middle of the seed head. It's smiling back at you. Well, it's got Fibonacci spirals. You look at a small one, and it's 34 by 55. You just count the number of spirals all the way around. That's how the flower presents itself. It's gorgeous. A little bigger, they're 34 by 55. No, they're up to 55 by 89. 89 by the large ones, 144 spirals. You can count them all. They're really on the button. They don't miss a click. Except sometimes there are different changes in nature. I was with my teenage daughter, and we were going in the field. I said, hey, let me show you these Fibonacci sunflowers. We've been looking at a lot of them. And I started counting them, and there were different numbers. What do you do with teenage daughter? You don't want to look dumb, but he said, I once heard about a Lucas sunflower. Luke. You know Luke? Well, you take a 1 and a 3 and you get a 4. And a 2 and a 4 makes a 7. And a 4 and a 7 makes 11. And I started counting them up and counting them up. And sure enough, those two numbers are what the sunflower had. Boy, it knows variation. So, okay, but let's go to the next one. You really understand what a Fibonacci numbers sunflower looks like. Started counting them. Not 34 by 55, double, it was 68 by 111, right on the button. A double Fibonacci sunflower. And the thing was about it, that instead of having these leaves that go up the stem, up, you know, they're the solar collectors. They get the energy from the sun and give it to the plant. Instead of them being single ones going around, there were two. The double Fibonacci number had two leaves at each level going up the stem. Smart plant. And so I thought, okay, well, the leaves have got a message for you. Now, folks, you really want to understand this special, what's called the divine proportion, the golden ratio. What am I talking about? I'm talking about how the leaves are arranged so they don't get in each other's way. Because, you know, if you have a leaf on top of another leaf, how are they going to see the sun? So one leaf spirals around the next leaf up, the next leaf up. The angle that they make is called the golden angle. And how does it work? The smaller angle is to the larger angle, as the larger angle is the whole darn thing. Let me say that again. The smaller is to the larger is to the whole. Doesn't that sound nice? We could start reciting it. The smaller is to the larger is to the whole. The golden ratio. Wow. Sunflowers are really pretty smart knowing that. And so if you look at how that works, the golden ratio, you got to think, where else does that appear in nature? And this kind of gets me to how I'm able to be on a story slam about trick or treat, because I thought, how could I love these pictures of things. I take pictures of photographs of the sunflowers. There were some up in the gallery in a show that I did a few years ago. And, you know, trick or treat, well, darn it all, it happened. I was looking around, and there on a Halloween card I was going to buy for my daughter, it said trick or treat, and there was a skeleton hand. Wow. Well, I'm not allowed to bring any props here, but I got this to show you, because if you look very carefully at that skeleton hand, the smaller joint is to the next joint, as the next joint is to the two of them together. The smaller is to the larger as the larger is to the whole. The next one up, the smaller is to the larger as the larger is to the whole. And yes, that skeleton that I bought at the dollar store had it just right, because the smaller to the larger is the larger to the whole. Wow, the golden ratio. It's not just only that I could say, hey, trick or treat. I could also say, I found it not only on a card, I found it on the skeleton at the dollar store. And the CVS had an ad in the paper for trick or treat candies. I went and bought a whole bunch of them. And would you believe it? But the bag holding the candies is the golden ratio rectangle. Would you believe it? What's a golden rectangle? It is the rectangle formed by the smaller side is to the larger side, as the larger side is to both together, the whole. And I got my ruler out. I measured it. I put it into a calculator. It was right on the button, exactly. How did they do that? The golden ratio, the golden angle on a trick-or-treat candy. Bingo. Okay, well, surprises, isn't it wonderful? I've got to say, Yeah, I'm 89 years old. And in a few more days, I'll have a birthday just before Halloween. But 89, it's a Fibonacci number.
Hi, I'm Marie. How many of you have that neighbor, that annoying neighbor, that competitive neighbor, that neighbor from hell? Yeah, none of us, right? Okay. So about 7 years ago, I got remarried and I moved into my neighborhood. And beautiful seaside neighborhood, you know, completely surrounded by water, not an island, but, you know, we're surrounded by water, a lot of seasonal neighbors, so there's nobody on the left of you, nobody on the right of you. It's quiet, beautiful, but somebody across the street from you, that neighbor. So, my husband and I, we love to give parties. By profession, I am a caterer and event planner. I do it with my family, and we love it. And I kind of married someone, he's a retired police officer, but we are so similar in that we love to entertain. So after we got married, we had a beautiful soiree, you know, a reception, so to speak, and we invited that neighbor across the street. So at the time, she was the girlfriend of my husband's longtime friend, the neighbor across the street. And she came and, you know, we were having our party, and it was a beautiful black and white affair. You know, we're an interracial couple, but that's not the meaning of the party. But, you know, the color, everything has to be a theme with me. So it was a beautiful black and white affair. You know, we have the food laid out. My son's a chef. We have a bar. And the neighbor, you know, she, you know, has a little too much to drink. And she is an Italian woman. So as, you know, we're having the meatballs passed, cocktail meatballs. These aren't real meatballs, you know. These are store-bought. I know how to make meatballs. You know, I'm Italian. She's telling the guest, right? So, you know, I said, never again. You know, it was that bad. I was like, she is not invited to my parties. But it's hard to be a party person and have parties and cars up and down the street when you don't invite that neighbor. So every year we do birthday parties. We do, I have a lot of networking events at my home, and some way she sneaks in, and there's always a veiled insult. You know, something's not right. And once she even challenged my mother, African-American mother, who has roots in the South, to a fried chicken cook-off. You know? My dad can cook fried chicken better than yours. And they did it. And they bonded. You know, the chicken was good. He actually did a great job. So every party we have, there's some kind of element of competition. My pasta salad is better than yours. Really, you know, my house is better than yours. Her house is like a quarter of the size of my house, but there's always something. She'll take my guest over to her house and say, look at my house. Isn't this fabulous? Last summer, my husband sold our boat to that neighbor. Yeah, so every Saturday morning we watch as they gather their grill and their things, and they put it on the boat, and they go out on the water, and I just yell at him. I'm like, why did you have to sell the boat to the... Who does that? Who does that? Who sells the boat to the neighbor? So we go on with our beautiful parties. Now, just picture my yard. It's shell and rock, all white, beautiful shell, different rocks, different structures. My husband's really good at landscape design. He'll tell you 67 bushes, you know, of all kinds, trees. It's just lovely. It's very conducive to party planning. And then add your son, who is a caterer, and the event planning, like Martha Stewart in pants. And he'll come over and he'll lay out the cocktail tables, the fabrics, the themes. So it kind of pales in comparison to her you know, we use dishes and glasses. Nothing pretentious, it's just what we do. Now, her thing is Halloween, right? So starting in October, like October 1, you see the pumpkin go up on the house. So think National Lampoon's Christmas, you know, with all the lights, right? So for 31 days, it gets progressively more Halloween-y, right? So you have like witches and ghosts in the window, you know, you have lights and bats, and she's like a full-fledged witch by Halloween day, like dressed up and everything. And I don't do Halloween. Every year she comes over and she says, come to my party, we have a party. So I have a son, he's 13, he has Down syndrome. And when he sees October 1st come, he starts going, scary. He signs, scary, I'm scary. He's scared. He's scared out of his mind. But she comes over almost daily. You're coming to my party, right? You're coming to my party. No, I'm a Christian. We don't do Halloween, you know, not good enough. You're coming to my party. Chase is coming to my party. So Chase comes home, and he'll literally go to the window and get scared and like run back, like all night long. She doesn't get it. So we have the pumpkin falls and it kind of hangs off. You have the witches, you have the ghosts in the window. Scary, scary. He's scared, you know, but she doesn't get it. So, but it's her thing. It's her thing. And that's the thing that binds us together. That's the thing that I love in the end of the day. So fast forward to Halloween night. Her house is lit up. The full-fledged witch costume on, the pumpkins hanging. You know, you got ghouls and ghosts and goblins, and my son's shivering in his boots, and her doorbell's ringing. Trick or treat, trick or treat, trick or treat, trick or treat. And me and my Martha Stewart landscape porch with the settee and everything's orange and the glitter pumpkins and the perfectly stacked pumpkins and the dried hydrangea. Nobody's there. Nobody comes, you know, so maybe I'll get one family. You know, granted, I don't have the lights on and it's not my thing, but I have a big bowl of candy just in case, and her door just rings, trick or treat, hundreds of kids, and they love it. So at the end of the day, Halloween is her chance to shine. Thank you.
So hi, I'm Larissa, and I am a recovering cool addict. I, from a very young age, have had a very complicated relationship with being cool and what it means to be cool. And one of the things in my definition of being cool is to look good, right? Basically, we're all just out here walking around trying to look good to each other, making sure that everybody else thinks that we look good to each other, with this whole fear mantra in the back of our heads being like, they're gonna find out, they're gonna find out, they're gonna find out. And what's hysterical about that is that we're all terrified that everybody else is gonna find out, so it's just a bunch of people walking around being terrified of being found out. So throughout life, there are those punctuation moments, right? Those moments in time where there is a period placed in your personality. This is part of who you become. It's when you learn things. It's when you learn how the world works and how society works and what's cool. So Halloween 6th grade was one of those times. I was a nerd, and I did not know I was a nerd. My friends were nerds. We liked books. We still liked dolls. We weren't into boys. We were so excited to be able to dress up, go get candy, eat as much of it as we want, because now it's not monitored anymore. So that was really cool. So I have this amazing idea for a Halloween costume, and I can't wait. And I, probably about the time school started, had thought of this. And we were doing a lot of reading then and a lot of women's history. And there was this woman that came up that I was like, that's who I'm gonna be. I can't wait. So I put everything into action. I start looking in my mom's closet and my aunt's closet, asking around for all the things that I'll need for this costume. Now, the older people in my life would give me this kind of quizzical look of, really? What do you need a floral dress for? And I'm like, no, it's part of my costume. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be great. Do you have, a calf-length floral dress, full sleeves with maybe a collar? And they're like, sure, come into the closet and check it out. So here I go, and keep looking for things, and I need a wig. And for whatever reason, my mom back in the 80s was into wigs, like everyone's into something, right? So she had this very short, kind of grayish blonde wig. I was like, that's perfect. So I get brave enough, I go up, I'm like, Mommy, can I borrow your wig for Halloween? And she was like, sure, honey. I'm like, but I'm gonna have to put a lot of talcum powder or baby powder in it because I need it to be gray hair. And again, that quizzical look comes in. She's like, what is it that you're going for Halloween? And I was like, I'm not telling anybody until it's time. I'm so excited. You guys are all gonna be so surprised. It's gonna be so cool. I can't even wait. So I keep collecting all my things and collecting all my things. So now I have my wig, I have my floral dress, I get my gloves, I get a book, I get some old lady stockings and old lady shoes. And here comes Halloween. And I grew up here on the Cape, born and raised. I grew up in Dennis. And where all the cool kids went to go trick-or-treating was up on Signal Hill. And this was the first time my mom was gonna let me go trick-or-treating there. And this is where all the cool kids were. And again, I had no idea I was not one of them. So me and my two other nerdy friends meet before, we're at their house, we're getting all dressed up, and they're getting dressed up in their costume, and I get dressed up in my costume, and I have my bag, which is a pillowcase, because I am not cool. Amen. So here I am, and my friends, I get all dressed up, I'm like, ta-da! And they look at me and they're like, so what are you? I was like, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt, duh! Who is literally my hero. She is one of the most amazing human beings to ever grace us with her presence. And I just think she's magic. And had I known about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, that's probably who I would have gone with, because the black dress would have been easier. But here I am, this nerdy little sixth grader with her two nerdy little friends and her pillowcase, and so excited to tell. And of course, everybody's gonna know what I am. So there I am, walking around, knock, knock, knock. And the other two are something more normal, you know, maybe, I can't remember what it was, but they're like, oh, a nice witch and, you know, a nice Care Bear. And they're like, and an old person? I'm like, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt. And all night long, I just had to keep telling everybody, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt. Until we ran into the cool kids. And it had started to kind of dawn on me that maybe this wasn't as cool as I thought it was. And so we run into the cool kids who are all in their like really cute, like their moms made their costumes, you know, or their store-bought costumes, which we did not have either. My mom worked, single parent, no money. I made my own. Another thing that wasn't so cool. So all of a sudden, here I am in this shrine to someone that I admire, faced with not looking good. This is not good. I don't look good. They not only don't know who I am, they are laughing and pointing at me for dressing like that. And then I'm like, I'm Eleanor Roosevelt. That didn't help. That was not a positive in my case for coolness here. So it's one of those moments where from that point forward, Halloween has always been, do you dress like one of the cool kids? Or do you go with what your gut tells you? And for years and years and years, that comes back into my head on random occasions, because through high school, I wanted to be cool so much that I pushed down the Eleanor Roosevelt. There were pockets, there were some people that got to see that part of who I was, but I definitely hid that from most people. And then in college, it kind of started to come out again. I was a religion major. That is not cool. So as I grew, I started to come back to it, but still now, at 40 years old, I stand there in front of the cool kids sometimes, and I am in my Eleanor Roosevelt costume, terrified that they're gonna laugh and point at me. So here I am, back on Cape Cod. I moved back a few years ago, and I'm starting to run into a lot of people that I grew up with and the people I went to high school with, and nobody remembers that I went as Eleanor Roosevelt in the 6th grade, right? I do. And I just recently signed up for the 5K in Denton on Northside, and I kind of think I'm gonna dress up as Eleanor Roosevelt. Thank you.
Are we ready? So, we'll do the audience favorite first. How's that? All right. So the audience favorite was storyteller number 5. Yo, you're going to come up and you're going to stand right next to me. All right? And the runner-up is going to be storyteller number 3, Al Rosenberg. Right here, buddy. All right. And the grand prize winner, first place. Are we ready? Storyteller number 5, Larissa. So on the behalf of the Media Center, you took in not only half the door, but half and 3 of the door. Holy moly. And Mr. Rosenberg, we hope you put that to good use as well. Thank you very much. Before we leave, I just wanted to thank everyone again. If you folks want to be storytellers, the Media Center is the place to be. We'll help you script, storyboard, if you want to record, if you have a documentary that you want to do, if you want to do a cooking show, we have a kitchen set. So we thank you all for coming this evening. Before all the storytellers leave, we would like a group photo up here on the stage, and we want to thank every storyteller that was brave enough to stand in front of this microphone tonight. Thank you.